Coming to you live from the snowy dunes of Hoth, it's Echo-Based Radio in a new setting!
What?
After being gone for like a year.
Yeah.
But anyway, Blue Leader 99.
Green Leader 88, if you don't remember.
And we are here today to talk about Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Finally!
Yeah, the worst of the prequels.
That's why we've waited a year to do this.
Sith happens, people. That's why it's taken a long time. Sith happens.
A lot of Sith happens.
A lot of Sith happens.
Mm-hmm.
3 years has passed since The Phantom Menace in our time. Would you say that the George Lucas hate is in full swing at this point, or do you think it's still going to take a little bit for that train to start rolling and everyone's going to hop on that bandwagon a little bit later on?
Are you talking about, like, current day?
Current day George Lucas hate that spawned stuff like the documentary The People versus George Lucas and
I don't think nowadays there's not so much George Lucas hate as much as there's Disney hate.
Right.
For what they've done with the series after George passed it on.
Yeah. This is what happens, people, when you bash the creator and he sells it off.
George's like, you know what? I'm done. Here, y'all want to bash my name? Here, let's see how y'all take it.
Yeah.
And how's that been working out?
Not too good. And it's been,
sequel trilogy.
And it's been weighing on his psyche, too. He's not happy about it either. The only time
George is rolling in his money.
I know,
but
have you seen how dead he looks whenever he makes an appearance at any sort of Disney Star Wars event?
Wouldn't you if your baby has turned into what it is?
The only time I've ever seen him, like, ever happy at any of these things was when he showed up on the set of The Mandalorian. That was like the only time I've ever seen him smile at anything Star Wars related.
On the set of the good one, that's why.
Back when we thought Jon Favreau was going to be our hope. but you know, we were kids, we were dumb, we loved this crap.
Yeah.
I found out that this one was actually written by the guy who did The Scorpion King in addition to George Lucas.
Ooh.
That explains the last half hour of this movie, or last 40 minutes of this movie.
The good part.
Yeah, the good part. I've never seen The Scorpion King, have you?
A long time ago, like once.
Okay, but anyway, I don't know if you knew about this. I got copious amounts of notes here, so if you see me scrolling down, like, you know, and flipping, that's why, because we got a script to follow, people.
The script. You gotta follow the script, people.
We got a couple of firsts here for a Star Wars. This was the first Star Wars film that was shot digitally.
Yep.
Yeah, so George this was also the time when George was pushing for theaters to put in digital projectors, and we were still going with the whole reel-to-reel analog thing. Filmmakers were still using physical print, 35 millimeter film, and then we found out how much easier it was to shoot on digital. And so George actually wanted to shoot digital for The Phantom Menace, but the cameras weren't done in time. So he had to wait, and they actually delivered these cameras to him, I think, like 2 weeks before filming started for this movie.
Ooh,
yeah, so
barely made it.
Yeah, so George knows how to move stuff around in Hollywood.
Well, and George has always been the kind of person to really push the bounds of what technology can do, and always try to take his work to the next level. Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about his style more as we go along this one, because this movie really speaks to something here. And this was also the very first Star Wars film to not finish first at the global box office at the end of the year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was beaten out by 3 other films, both critically and commercially. Do you know what those were?
No.
Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Okay.
The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Okay.
And at the top was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Okay. Okay, well, and that's easy to see given how, The Phantom Menace was received. A lot of people really didn't take well to that, so...
And even looking back, 20 plus years after those, 2 of those 4 are still held in very high regard, and in my book at least.
Yes.
Can you take a guess? Yeah, it's been a long time since I've watched Lord of the Rings, though. But Two Towers is still a very, very well made film, and I think I think this was also during the time that they were able to get Christopher Lee to do this, because he was still filming Lord of the Rings at that time.
Because didn't they film like all 3 together?
Yes, and so with that close of a schedule, George was able to get Christopher Lee to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So Christopher Lee's a pro, and I love it. So that's just a little bit of a background as to what's happening in the real world. I think Lucas might be just reeling a little bit as to how Phantom Menace wasn't as well received as he may have hoped, but you can't just say you're going to start a prequel trilogy and just leave it at 1.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And you also got a lot of expectations, you got to talk about that Clone War. You got to turn Anakin into Darth Vader. You got to set up the Empire. All this.
Obi-Wan.
Yes. You also have to bring about the fall of the Jedi, and this movie sets up a lot of that.
And plus, it's setting up a brand new world of Star Wars, because this is the world that we're in the prequels is vastly different from the Empire era.
Yes.
That we see in the originals.
Yes, because
and I love the very stark differences between the two.
Oh yeah. Whereas the original trilogy, all of the spaces that we visit feel very lived in and run down, aside from the Empire, which is very pristine and clean and has that shine to it.
Really shows you the state of
everything
the
else here, aside from like desert planets like Tatooine and Geonosis, everything here is clean. Yeah.
Tatooine's always been a shithole.
Oh yeah. But
that's my 1.
That's your 1. Okay, but so basically, this is how many years? Yeah, 10 years after the Phantom Menace. Yeah, so
I think originally you said 5, but it's 10.
No. 3 years in our time, between the making of the movies.
You're right.
Yeah, but in Star Wars timeline, 10 years between Phantom Menace and this. So Anakin is now 19 years old. Padme's in her 20s. Obi-Wan has become a full-fledged Jedi Master. We also find out that the Republic is starting to lose allies to a separatist movement that is being led by a former Jedi called Count Dooku, and we don't really know why. But this was a cool way to start it, because right after the title crawl, we get this. This is the only time in Star Wars where the camera pans up instead of going down or anything. We wouldn't see this again until like maybe 15 or so years later with The Force Awakens, because we go back up with that one. But this was cool because we see ships flipping over to get into the correct space to get into the correct landing space of how they're going to land on Coruscant. So that's cool. Yeah. Because in space you have no direction. So you got to get it correlated with the planet. But we find out that Padme's now a senator, and when her ship lands, it gets blown up and she's dead.
Love that fake out that they give us.
Yeah.
Corday.
Yeah, Corday. Yeah, and Padme's all like broken up about that, but does she not realize that that's the part of a decoy?
That's the job.
You were supposed to take the bullet. You're supposed to take the fall. You are the fall guy, or in this case, the fall girl. Yeah, and her new captain, seems to get that, and I like this guy, but seriously, why couldn't Captain Panaka come back? I liked Captain Panaka. I mean, we never get an in-universe explanation as to where any of our episode 1 friends who never show up again. We never get an in-universe explanation as to what happened to them or where they are or whatever.
They retired. They moved on to better planes.
Or in this case, they just moved on with their lives and they didn't want to get bogged down in Star Wars conventions for the rest of their lives. Yep. But so after that, we see that Chancellor Palpatine, the new Chancellor, after the events of Episode 1, after his machinations with the Senate, we see that he's talking with the Jedi and saying that, we're still holding off on this vote of whether or not we need an army. We're gonna try to hold off on this thing. Diplomatic solutions are still in place. I don't want to be the fall guy for this republic. And if anything bad does happen, and Ian McDiarmid, for being a guy who first appeared in Return of the Jedi and being in the same room as Sam Jackson, he's commanding that room throughout that entire scene.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
he commands the room anytime he's on screen.
Yeah.
Like he has that professional verbose about him.
Yeah, he's just so...
And with the way he talks, it's so smooth and it just rolls off the tongue.
It's just so silky and so conniving, and I mean, knowing that this guy is evil, but then again, how can you just not like him?
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
maybe he's not as bad as we think he is.
Yeah, and just him talking to Yoda. Yoda can't see through that disguise, but it's just like. But it's just like Palpatine knows, Yoda doesn't, but there's just like that weird thing where Yoda looks back and he's just like, no, there's something about you.
Yeah, there's a lot of instances where Yoda and like the rest of the Jedi, like Mace, they'll give Palpatine a look. And you can tell like they're trying to put something together, but they can't figure out what it is.
Yeah, and even Yoda says to his face, the dark side clouds everything. So it's like,
Palpatine's like, yeah, I know, I'm clouding you right now.
Yeah, so because of these attacks on her life and everything, and because of the separatist movement that's currently happening. Padme instantly intuits that it's Count Dooku who's doing it, and Sam Jackson says that Count Dooku was once a Jedi. You have to remember that you have to remember that Count Dooku was once a Jedi. He wouldn't murder anyone. It's not in his character. People can't change. Apparently not. So I mean, I think there's like some really good comics out there that talk about that talk about Dooku's fall to the Sith, how it was initially his disillusionment with the Jedi that started him down the road of just like leaving that thing. And I still never finished Tales of the Jedi. Does it deal with that a little bit in there? Or no?
I didn't finish the Dooku episodes.
Oh, okay.
Which I need to go back to because those were really good.
Oh yeah, I love seeing young Qui-Gon in there. So the Chancellor thinks that it's wise for Padme to have some Jedi bodyguards added to her security detail, and it's like, maybe it would be better if you had someone you knew, an old friend like, say, Master Kenobi. And so Mace is like, he's available right now. He just finished some sort of border dispute. Don't know what's going on with that, but we're introduced to Ian McDiarmid, not Ian McDiarmid, Ewan McGregor. Oh my gosh! Thank you. Those names are just so alike. And our new Anakin Skywalker, played by Hayden Christensen,
the GOAT.
Not in this movie though.
He becomes the GOAT.
Yeah, but in this first scene and in other points throughout the movie, he seems very tense. Like I think he's just nervous to be here because this was like his first big break. Yeah. He had already done another movie before this called My Life as a House or something like that. But this was like his first big break in being in like the biggest franchise in the world at the time.
Yeah.
So I think being an unknown actor cast into the biggest villain role of all time, you're going to be, tense. And I think it shows here, but there's moments where they do have some good banter. He and Ewan McGregor, but for the most part of this movie, they just bitch like an old couple, and it is obnoxious. And you just are in utter disbelief that this is the guy that Obi-Wan in the original movie said that he was a good friend.
Yeah. I mean, so like with Anakin's bitchiness, like I understand what they were going with, because Anakin is still, for all intents and purposes, a child.
Yeah.
He's still a teenager. So
Yeah.
I know that they're wanting to show that teenage, rebellious side, like,
Right.
I know it all, like I know more than you, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But the Jedi should be able to handle their emotions better.
Right.
And I think they could have conveyed that to a little less extent than what they did. I think they went a little overboard. And with him being a Jedi, he should be able to have those emotions, but still be more restrained.
Yeah. But the Jedi don't count for emotional immaturity because they basically abduct these Padawans at a very young age, and they don't give them that time
they don't have that opportunity
healthily
to have those
to like
attachments.
healthily separate from the parents when it's the appropriate time. There's even that scene where he and Obi-Wan are like chatting when they're like just making sure that Padme's okay, and Obi-Wan's like you seem tired, and Anakin's like, oh well, I've been having bad dreams about my mother, and Obi-Wan seems to display a little bit of sympathy there, but his line, he just kind of shrugs it off. He's just like, dreams pass with time.
Yeah, I think he was trying to downplay the situation to keep Anakin's emotions in check.
Yeah. It's kind of like he wanted to show sympathy, but at the same time, he also had to remember the code.
Yeah.
He also had to remember the code of the Jedi, but still, it's just really hard. And at the same time, when you see how the Jedi treat him in comparison to how I guess you could say the fake compassion that the Sith show him, it's no wonder he would fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I got this thought when I was watching it earlier. This is kind of like a form of spiritual abuse that they're putting on him with all of this, with all of these, dogmatic, strict rules that they're putting on him. You have to follow the code this way. You can't have any outside attachments, no outside communication.
Well, and then again, it goes back to the whole teenage thing. You always want what you can't have. Like if you tell a child, no, you can't do this, or no, you can't have it, they're going to pursue that even more, even harder.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but Anakin needs to work on his pickup game.
Yeah. Well, though I'm sure that there's not many females in the order, so he's kind of learning this on the fly.
Well, I mean, he's got plenty of blue and green and redskin chicks running around.
Yeah.
I actually found out that one of those chicks who looks at him in the club, that was actually the woman in the red dress from The Matrix.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I don't know. So I don't know what's going on, but I was laughing so hard at this today. The way that Padme just looks at him with those dead eyes as he delivers his Oscar-worthy performance of, "So have you grown more beautiful, I mean. Well, for a senator, I mean." It's so bad.
You're a hot young senator. You probably have guys hit on you all the time. So she's probably like, oh, God, here we go.
I know, but it's just right out the gate. He even says, I haven't seen her in 10 years when he's on the elevator. And then she's just like, oh my, look at how big you are, kind of like, Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf, and he's just like, so have you grown more beautiful. I mean, it's just like, whoa, right out the gate, bro.
Annie, come on.
Wow.
I
Nice
love how
guy
you can see
syndrome
Obi-Wan
much?
just kind of.
Nice guy syndrome much? This is also the scene. This is also the part where Jar Jar breaks the fourth wall and mugs at the camera. Have you noticed that?
I have.
Someone in the People versus George Lucas pointed that out, and he said that was George like trying to antagonize the audience by Jar Jar basically being like the stand-in for George, giving the audience the finger and going, "I'm still here."
WESSA BACK.
Yeah.
George would do that.
Yeah, but luckily Jar Jar has a lot more restraint here. He's not going to be in this movie like much anymore.
And you can tell that's because George realized the hate
Yeah.
that Jar Jar got. So he was like, you know what, let's tone this down a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point he also realized that his own children were growing up too, because I think that Jar Jar was also not only meant to be for the children of the world, but also for his children too. And since his daughters were growing up, this was also why he tried to get NSYNC into the movie as well.
Yeah.
You remember NSYNC, right?
NCO, I do.
Oh my gosh. But after all of this, stuff with all this crap that's going on and everything, we take a little detour into Blade Runner for a little bit, and we get to meet our assassin of who tried to blow up Padme at the landing dock, and we get to meet some mysterious looking dude in the shadows, but he's got a helmet and a jetpack that look pretty familiar from what we've seen before.
I can't put my finger on it though.
Don't know who that is.
No.
But he's on the poster front and center. And he hands her this tube of slugs, and he says, "Be careful, they're very poisonous." And when this little like droid flies to the apartment and drops the slugs into these things, they're smart enough to know not to like trip the alarm and hide out of sight from R2-D2 when he's like shining the light. So what's the deal with that?
Assassin slugs right there.
Apparently so, but that's just a bit ridiculous. Even for a Star Wars movie, I mean, these things are even more ridiculous than the intelligence of the raptors in Jurassic Park. I mean, seeing the way that these things are able to hide from a light and try not to trip up the security alarm and things that's going on in there, I can believe that a raptor can open a door.
Yeah.
Did you also notice the creepy thing that Anakin said before this scene? She hid the cameras. Oh no, what is it? She covered the cameras. I don't think she liked me watching her.
Well, duh. Oh, freaking creeper.
We're gonna get into some of this stuff more. Let's see. He says, I'd much rather be around... I'd much rather dream about Padme. Just being around her again is intoxicating. Be mindful of your hormones, Anakin. They betray you.
Bet Anakin listens to emo music.
Yeah. Yeah, and... so... The way he kills the slugs, not only was that overkill, he could have killed her.
You could take the legs off, man.
And the way he did that felt a bit rapey, too.
Yeah.
Just like, you come in, pull a lightsaber, jump on her bed, kill the slugs. The first thing Padme sees when she wakes up is you over her with a lit lightsaber. It's like, dude, what the...
You're not helping your case, bro. You're not helping your case at all.
No wonder you covered up those cameras, you... Pat. Gosh. But, Obi-Wan still proves that he's like, still hasn't gotten over his hot-headedness from the Phantom Menace, because he sees a droid at the window. What does he do? He immediately jumps out and grabs it,
dives
and
out the window.
starts flying through the city on it, and then the assassin Zam just thinks, oh, okay, he's gonna fall, so just shoot the droid. It's gonna get rid of any evidence. Yeah. Those slugs are probably gonna get fried from the blast, and so yeah, I'm gonna get out of here now.
Yeah. She's smart.
Yeah, and Anakin says, he catches Obi-Wan as Obi-Wan's falling. He catches him in a speeder, and Obi-Wan says, "What took you so long?" And he goes, "Oh, I couldn't find a speeder that I really liked." Oh, well, I understand, because you had to do a callback to American Graffiti because the speeder had to look like John Milner's car.
Yep.
That's why. They do have some good sound design with the speeders here. I like how Anakin's kind of does sound like kind of does have like that hot rod sound to it, and then Zam's has that weird like electric guitar slide thing to it. That it's kind of it kind of reminds me of the sound of like when someone's playing the guitar and they put a shot glass on their finger and roll it down the strings. That's what that reminded me of. I wonder if Williams started to employ instruments into the sound design. I wonder if maybe he worked with Ben Bird a little bit more in conjunction with this. I mean, it could have been that could have been the case, but this chase is fun. I do like Anakin's little risk taking when they're diving head forward into that dome, and Obi-Wan's like, pull up, and he's like, no, and he pulls her right up at the last thing. It's like there is the pilot that Obi-Wan was talking about.
Now this is pod racing.
Oh gosh, don't. We're not going back there. We're not going back there, but Anakin also takes another thing. He just jumps out of the speeder onto Zam's and tries to like apprehend her somehow. Somehow. But I do like that instant when she turns and looks at him, and you can see the face change. I remember watching that on video. I never caught this when I saw it in theaters, but when I noticed that on video, I noticed the face change, and I was like, wait a minute, rewind. What was that? Rewind. Oh, the face changed. And I was like, oh, okay, that's tying into something.
I love how this whole sequence really just shows like Anakin's skill, because ever since A New Hope, we've always learned that Anakin was the best starfighter pilot in the galaxy. And here you really get to see this with his instincts and his risk takings, like pulling up at the very last second, like timing everything just right, the jump to catch Zam, like it really does show up in really more than pretty much any of these movies, just how like good of a pilot and how good his reflexes are.
Oh yeah, and you said it. Yeah. Unfortunately, those skills don't come in good use when they crash into the underbelly of Coruscant. But this is the first time we get to see like the streets, right? This is the first time we get to see the streets.
The nightlife of Coruscant.
Yeah, the nightlife. They have clubs and bars down there.
And this is also our first changeling, too.
This is? This is the first time we have a shapeshifter in Star Wars?
I believe so. Up until this point, yeah.
Okay, so nothing nothing like this happened before in like comics or video games or anything previously?
Now, if you're talking about other media, I don't know, but I'm like just movies.
Like in Star Wars media previously.
I mean, as for comics and video games, I don't know, but I'm just speaking like towards like in the movies.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, they walk into the bar, and everyone's like, "Where is he?" I think he is a she, and I think she's a changeling. So, let me ask you this: is that alien form her true form? Because later on when she gets killed,
She reverts
she
back. I would think
she
so.
changes into the
The
like
reptile looking thing.
yeah, so it's kind of like how like in the later X-Men films,
Well, Mystique.
yeah kind of like how she's always Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you can't pay Jennifer Lawrence enough to put on the blue body paint and everything.
Apparently not.
Yeah, but
That's why she dies in the third one.
well, I like going into this club because we get the sense that this is different from the cantina from the first movie. This isn't just like a little like a little dive. This isn't a hole in the wall. You get the sense that this is part of the Coruscant nightlife. This is where the people are gonna go to have a good time.
Yep.
Like this place is hopping. It's kind of like kind of like a sports bar almost, because they got some TVs going on, but they got some weird sports going on.
Yeah.
On those TVs. I mean,
Pretty sure there was like a pod racing thing.
We do see pod
race.
racing, but they got some weird droid football and some weird like patty frog racing. It kind of reminded me of that scene in All Dogs Go to Heaven where they had those rats racing. Did they ever do something like that in real life with real rats where they would do something like that?
I have no clue.
It's odd, but yeah, sports in Star Wars are kind of stupid aside from pod racing. Pod racing's cool, but yeah, it's weird. But this was also where we got, real life Ahmed and real life Anthony Daniels in the club.
Yep.
Like all up in the club, without
Bottles full of bub.
without any CGI or weird costumes or metal or makeup or anything. They're just there in their Star Wars outfits having a good time. But they still couldn't get away with this. Do you want to know what Ahmed's character name is in that scene?
I don't know.
Ahmed Beck.
Wow. Ahmed Beck.
Yeah.
Could just call him by his real name at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the Death Sticks guy. He's cool. He's probably pulling a profit at that club.
Shady businessman right there.
He is a shady businessman, but Obi-Wan puts him on the right.
Things.
Obi-Wan puts him on the right path. He's probably going to go to rehab after this.
I would hope so.
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
gonna go home and rethink my life.
yeah. I mean, we know that Han and Chewie are smuggling stuff. Do you think they were They had to have been smuggling Death Sticks, or at least what they put in the Death Sticks. I don't even know what they put in those Death Sticks.
Spice.
But spice something. I don't know. But anyway, they subdue the assassin, haul her out into the streets. She gets shot by a poison dart by the guy who gave her the slugs, and he flies
bounty
off.
hunter.
Yeah, we don't know who that is.
Is that Mando? It's Mando.
Yeah, he's on the poster.
Right?
He's on the poster. Anyway, Coruscant's too much of a hotbed, so we got to get the senator back home. We gotta take her someplace safe, and so they say, Anakin, you're going to be her bodyguard. You're going to take her back to her home planet, and you're going to keep her safe. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan, you're going to go and track down the assassin, because why not?
Yeah, well, that's a good plan. Send the senator off with the horny young Padawan, right?
Right. Yeah.
With no supervision.
Yeah, with
There's
no
a plan.
supervision.
Good job, Jedi Masters.
Yeah. Let's cover this romance thing a little bit because I just don't want to keep,
It's like
First of all, we don't want to keep harping on it, and number two, I just don't want to, follow this too
it's like a Band-Aid.
linearly. Yeah, but okay, let's talk about this for just a minute. I think that we can go ahead and agree that this romance just does not work.
No.
I know why it's there, because Luke and Leia need to come into the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're trying to tell me that this is the passionate love that brought A New Hope into the galaxy, you're not selling it, because I'm sorry, but this is not Han and Leia.
This was the most weirdest, corniest, most awkward relationship.
It is. I mean, this was cringe fest before cringe even entered the cultural lexicon.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was feeling it, and sitting in those theater seats. It's so bad. I remember someone likening it to like, a teenager who was writing poetry to their crush for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or a teenager who was trying to get with their hot teacher.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is just so.
And when you think about the age difference, it even gets more creepy.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's it's not like it's too. I mean, yes, there is a 10-year age, or I don't know. She okay. He was 9 in episode 1. Yeah. How old was she? 14?
I would say 15, 16.
Okay, so like a 6-7 year difference?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's not that bad. I mean, at this point, at least they're of age, but it's still kind of like she's had a bit more life experience than you, Anakin, and also you're coming from 2 completely different worlds.
Yeah.
You never had the you were unfortunately taken what's the word? You were severed from having the emotional maturity that you needed. She had that, I think, with her parents. I mean, even though she was put into politics and diplomacy at a young age, it still seemed like she turned out okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there are those deleted scenes where like, she goes to visit her family on Naboo, but, those got cut. So we know that she had a family, and she's had like, friends in and out of school and everything. But, with Anakin, it's kind of like, he didn't have a dad. He was immaculately, conceived, born into slavery, separated from his mom at a young age, basically raised in an ivory tower with a dogmatic cult. And who does he have? Basically Obi-Wan, and that's it. And even then, Obi-Wan's not the best to him.
No.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's two completely different worlds, and when you look at the difference between Anakin and Padme and Han and Leia. First of all, in real life, Carrie and Harrison were actually hooking up offset. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's Harrison Ford.
Well, I mean, he was the one who, first, deflowered her. Did you know that?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That I didn't know.
Yeah. So, I think he was already married at the time. He was her first.
Dog.
He was her first during the making of the first movie. And I believe it was in her autobiography that she referred to those little trysts that they had as Knights of the Force.
That's awesome.
So not only did they have that going on in real life, but that chemistry came through on screen. And you believe that those two are, in love and have the hots for each other. Whereas with Anakin and Padme, this is just the cute celebrity couple of the weekend that's going to show up on the cover of People magazine, and then just people are going to forget about them the very next week.
Yeah.
You're going to read about their extravagant wedding, their honeymoon in Cancun, and then they're going to be divorced in 2 weeks. Like, these are just going to be two people who basically just want to get together for sex, and that's it.
Yeah, just in the moment kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my gosh, there's just nothing there.
No, they have no chemistry whatsoever.
It's, yeah. And I mean, and I mean, you can try, but like I was saying before at the beginning of this, I think that this movie is the best testament that Lucas does not do well with actors.
No.
This movie is a testament to his inability to work with actors. Lucas is great when it comes to visual storytelling, metaphor, and shorthand. But if you are an actor and you're under George Lucas, you better be bringing your own talent to the table and better know how to read scripts and know how to put character into scripts, because you cannot count on George Lucas for guidance the way someone like, Scorsese or Spielberg or any of these other Hollywood greats would have directed an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that fireside chat, too. The way that he's, blaming her for everything, almost.
Yeah, I skip through that part every time.
Yeah, but he says such weird things like you're expecting me to be rational? That's something I cannot do. And then he's like, we could keep it a secret. It's like, George, I know that you said this is a soap opera, but I'm sorry, this is not sexy at all.
No.
This is not sexy at all.
And you can imagine George sitting over there in his director chair. Oh yeah, this is the good stuff right here. This is cinema gold.
You know that dress that she's wearing in that scene? He designed that.
Oh wow.
He designed that. Just let that sink in.
George knows what he likes.
This is a man with children. An old man with children.
Papa George.
Papa George, yeah. Papa G.
Well, he also did the slave Leia outfit too. So.
Oh, he designed that too.
I mean, he I don't know if he designed it, but he approved it.
Was he going around with his different colored highlighters like he was doing with the Phantom Menace, going, "This is real, not surreal.
Yep.
Real, not surreal."
No, this one will do.
Gosh. And then he accidentally marks the wrong one. Oh.
Oh.
All right, you guys have to do the whole thing over again.
We'll re-edit that in 3 years.
Yeah. Which is another thing that they wanted that I needed to add about something that they added that can tie into the Anakin and Padme thing. Remember that scene where he's having the bad dream about his mom?
Yes.
And we hear her screams? I don't ever remember that being in the original cut, because I watched this thing numerous times on VHS and I saw it in theaters. I don't ever remember those screams. Was this one of those weird things that they added in later releases like they did with all of the special editions and things like that? Yeah. I mean, I'm not complaining, it works, but it's just like, oh, I don't remember that. Was there something wrong with my VCR, or was there just bad?
It's probably one
or
of
was
those
there just a bad sound
George
thing?
decided to add in, like, oh, this would be cool if we added this little extra thing right there.
Yeah, kind of like Luke screaming when he falls into the reactor in Empire. And then they go and take it out during the Blu-ray release.
But I did want to point out one more thing about the fireplace scene. If anything, it really gives you a good idea of where Anakin's headspace is at, because the part of the conversation where they're talking about, well, you can't just get people to do what you want to, and Anakin's like, well, you can make them, and she's like, well, this is a democracy, not a dictatorship, and then you see, for a split second, you see that smirk on Anakin's face. It's like, well, you can make them do whatever you want to.
Yeah.
And you can see that shift in his brain.
Yeah. And Padme's rocking the Leia buns in that scene too. There was also the bad CGI cow too.
Yeah.
Apparently, that was a scene that looked terrible. Well, I mean, it looks terrible now, but apparently it looked even worse in the badly cropped IMAX version that was released when this came out. Apparently the IMAX camera just couldn't handle how bad it looked then.
Yeah, I think we can move on from the fireplace scene.
Yeah.
That's that.
Yeah, so, yes, it's just so bad. And I can't believe it. We made it through this whole thing and we didn't even bring up sand.
Yes!
First on YouTube. So now we're going to backtrack a little bit and we're going to go to Obi-Wan's story now because now Obi-Wan...
We're going to take a quick pause real quick. We will be right back. And we're back.
We're back. He had to take a back-to-tank break.
Yeah, too much of that blue milk, man. It just flows right through you.
Well, at least it wasn't Jawa juice because that's where we're going next. We're going to see our pal Dexter. I like this guy.
I know, he was one of my favorite new characters.
I like this guy. This guy's great. I mean, not only does he seem to own, a pretty, cool restaurant, this is a guy who's been around.
Yeah, and he just seems like a guy you can trust.
Yeah.
Like, he's your pal.
Yeah. He seems like he's gonna, not only is he gonna give you a good story, you know that he's not gonna BS you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he knows, he also knows, enough that, he can kind of diss the Jedi without pissing Obi-Wan off because he's those droids in your archives, they just focus on symbols, and with you Jedi, I thought that you would know the difference between knowledge and wisdom, and
and wisdom,
and they're cloners, damn good ones too. And he's like, well, are they friendly? Well, that all depends on what. On how good your manners are.
How big your pocketbook is.
And he's got a nice stash, too.
Yeah, he does. The best in the galaxy,
I never noticed that before until recently. But then but after Obi-Wan finds out that the little dart wouldn't show up in the archives and Dexter knows where it comes from, he goes to look it up in the Jedi archives. Now, this place looks cool. I wonder how you would access or be able to check out a book from there. But that librarian is kind of an asshole.
Yeah. Old crotchety woman.
Yeah, she's and that's my one for the day. Yeah, because what is it that she says? If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist. How can you be that arrogant?
It's a cover-up.
But at least she kind of gets a satisfying end in the Episode 3 video game. Did you ever play the tie-in game where Anakin kills her?
Yep.
After she draws a lightsaber on him.
Shitting him out off.
Maybe Anakin had one too many overdue hollow books, and he was kind of like, this is for all those late fees you charged me. You didn't have enough Republic credits.
Money doesn't work over here.
Yeah. But anyway, Obi-Wan is kind of at a dead end, so he's just like, okay, well, I know that Dexter's going to be good to me. This Jedi librarian didn't do jack. So let me see what my pal Yoda can tell me. So he goes to Yoda's youngling class, and it's cute but dangerous. It's a nice little throwback with the remote droid and everything. It's cute seeing all the little kids with their little lightsabers and their blast shield visor hats and everything like that. But those kids are standing awfully close together.
You gotta have a lot of faith in those kids and their skills.
And I mean, does Yoda not have spatial awareness? Could he not at least? And And I mean, that is a pretty big room there. They are so close together. Couldn't he have at least made use of the space, just kind of be like, okay, we're going to kind of do this like a pie. Okay, you here, you here, you here. Then we're going to just fill up the empty spaces, but we're still going to have plenty of space between us.
Or I guess your mindset is only the strongest survive.
Apparently so, but apparently, you know, Obi-Wan and Yoda are not smart enough to know that apparently someone just could have erased something from the archives, and and they need a child to tell them this.
He gets schooled by a child. That's why Anakin comes back and mows him down.
Reminds me of that episode of the Amanda Show where that kid beat up one of her friends. And she started making out with the hot guy, and that guy started crying. But anyway, this leads Obi-Wan to a planet called Kamino, and I like Kamino. It's basically a big sea planet with a city in there, but it's constantly raining, and the interior of the space is like pristine. It's kind of like a cross between Star Trek and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And these aliens that appear there, they are so polite, but it's never to the point where, me personally, it never got to the point where I was mistrusting of them. It was just like, I would feel so comfortable talking to these aliens. They never seemed untrustworthy.
See, like for me, it was the exact opposite. Because, like, okay, these guys are overly friendly. Like, what are they hiding? Like, what do they know?
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I got the sense that they were you know, too friendly and accommodating because they knew that they had a good client on their hands and they wanted to impress them, and maybe this was just and plus Dexter even told them it depends on how good your manners are and how big your pocketbook is. Sifo-Dyas must have dropped his credit card, and so they were charging him out the wazoo, even though he's dead. I always thought that Sifo-Dyas was like a pseudonym for Qui-Gon, because he said that Sifo-Dyas died 10 years ago. At that time, I was only going off of information in the movies, so I thought that maybe Qui-Gon was the one who maybe had put in the order for the clones. But that doesn't seem like something Qui-Gon would have done. And then I find out that Sifo-Dyas was apparently some like Asian Jedi who looked like a samurai sort of. And then when he died, and they like blew up Grievous's ship to get him to comply with the separatist movement, they put blood. They put Sifo-Dyas' blood into Grievous as like a blood transfusion, and they thought that maybe it would give him the ability to use the Force, but apparently not. Yeah.
Well, sound reasoning.
Yeah, but apparently now General Grievous's backstory is no longer canon, but it was a good backstory too.
Yeah.
I love Grievous's backstory. But anyway, they say when Obi-Wan gets there, he meets with the Prime Minister of the planet, and he says, "Oh,
Ennui.
Yeah, wait, no, Lama Su.
Lama Su, yes.
Yes.
Ennui was the one who greeted him.
Yeah. She was like the, I don't know, like an ambassador, or just like a maiden or something. I don't know, but you know, he sits down and it's like, you know, a Jedi's come, so apparently he assumes that like, you know, he already knows what's going on. Lama Su does. And he's like, oh, just wanted to let you know we're on schedule. We have 250,000 units ready, and 1 million more are, you know, on their way. And Obi-Wan's just like, well, that's good news. And he's like, tell your master Sifo-Dyas that like, you know, his order is coming along, you know, as he wanted. And he's like, well, who was it? And he said, oh, well, Master Sifo-Dyas, is he still not a member of the Jedi Council? And he's like, oh, he's been dead for a decade. And he's like, oh, well, I'm sure he would have been happy with, the progress that we've made. And he's like, on what? And he goes, oh, a clone army. And I must say, the finest that we've ever made. And Obi-Wan's like, well, who was it for? And he's like, oh, it's for the Republic. Didn't you not know? And he's like,
nah.
And he's like, would you like to see him? And he's like, sure.
Yes, I would.
And so we go through this, I'll admit it's a nice looking facility, but it's kind of odd just seeing all of these, babies in tubes, kind of like in the Matrix. Then we got kids at computers, and then we got, we see clones like doing like physical combat training, and then we have other clones enjoying chow time. They have that one that they really focus on, who seemed like really unhappy with what they were feeding him that day. yeah, and they're saying, oh, well, we have the best training programs. They can think creatively. They're much more, they're like much more independent than droids, and the host that we had that we have to do all this was a really good template. And Obi-Wan was like, oh, well, who was the original host? And he was like, oh well, it was a bounty hunter by the name of Jango Fett. And and it just so happens we shack him up in a penthouse here, and we also pay him, so he's got a pretty cozy life. And he also requested one thing. He also wanted an unaltered clone for himself. It's kind of curious, but we accommodated him. Do you think it's weird to raise a clone of yourself as your child?
Yes.
Explain. I think it's weird too. I just want to hear your explanation.
Because it's you. I mean, it's not you, but like when it grows up, like it's gonna look like you. How weird is that gonna be? Yeah. I think the reason why Jango wanted a clone for himself is for monetary purposes. Like I don't think it had anything to do with him wanting a son or him wanting a family or anything. Like maybe it's
really. You don't think the bounty hunter life caught up with him, and he wasn't tying into the cowboy trope of wanting those of he never he regretted never settling down and having a wife and a family, so this was the closest that he could do?
Not really.
No?
I mean, Jango Fett seems harder to me.
Really?
Yeah.
You think he would have been a bachelor for life?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he has several flings throughout the galaxy,
A gal in every port kind of guy?
Yeah,
Okay.
But yeah, okay. I think he had an ulterior motive for Boba.
Oh man, that makes Boba even more tragic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even more tragic than when he showed up in The Mandalorian, and he speaks, and they're like, I've heard your voice millions of times, and it's just like, oh wow, yeah, he's not really all that special anymore, is he?
When you look at it like that.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's
what they did to our boy.
Yeah, but Obi-Wan's like, well, could I meet him? And they're like, yeah, sure. And before they have to show him the clones, gearing up and going onto the ship, and that's when they start playing a military theme that's not the Imperial March, but it's getting close to it. Mm-hmm. So then we go to Jango's little tiny cramped apartment. I mean, for a guy who was the template for their whole operation, they sure screwed him out of the penthouse. but Obi-Wan's just trying to subtly pump him for information, mm-hmm. and he was like, oh, well, so you must have known Sifo-Dyas. He was the one who put in the order. And Jango was like, oh, no, I was recruited by a man called
Tyrannus.
Yeah, Tyrannus. And Obi-Wan's just like, funny. Mm-hmm. I was never told. And so that leads him to report back to the Jedi, and they're like, "Oh, well, oops, we didn't know. We didn't know that one of our own didn't put it put in this order and didn't tell us." And then Sam Jackson just says so casually, "I think it's time to tell the Senate that our ability to use the Force is kind of gone down a little bit."
It's like, no, don't tell them that.
You don't do that.
No.
Meanwhile, Palpatine's just in his office going, "Yeah."
Just moving the chess pieces.
Yep. Man, he's so happy. Yeah.
And then Obi-Wan gets attacked by Jango.
Yeah. Like he goes off to fight him. That fight's kind of bland, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been better, but I understand that we got better things to do and it can't drag on for too long. But a guy with dual pistols and a jetpack, of course you're going to want to see him fight.
You would think the Jedi would have better sloop-resistant shoes.
Well, Jango didn't either. That's why he had to have those blades on his thing.
Very true.
But then when you see him climb back up the side of that thing, he doesn't even use them.
Yeah.
It's just like, what?
Okay.
Yeah, but apparently, Obi-Wan's Jedi abilities just aren't good enough for all those little gadgets that he has in his suit. It's so...
He doesn't have a spidey sense.
Apparently not. He was able to swing back onto that catwalk, but still, it looked worse than Spider-Man. I tell you what, CGI has come a long way to where Spider-Man swinging along that can actually look good now.
Yeah, it doesn't just look like a video game.
Yeah, it looks so much better now. So now we have the mystery solved of what's going on with these cloners. With these cloners. So now Obi-Wan is told to apprehend Jango, so that's what he tried to do on the platform, but he couldn't do it. So now he has to. Yeah, you failed. So now he has to track him into space. We're gonna leave Obi-Wan there for a little bit, but Anakin decides that since he's having all these bad dreams, he's gonna go to help his mom, and he goes to Tatooine. But that's where we're gonna cut off for today.
Yes.
And we are going to pick up with part 2 of Attack of the Clones next time on Echo Base Radio.
We will see you there.
Later, taters.
Adios.
Stand in the